Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Thursday, August 29th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, we have the potential for a windfall fee in Elon Musk's Tesla Pay case, the Supreme Court holding Biden's student loan relief plan, and visualizing a proposed unrealized gains tax. Let's remember, without labor, nothing prospers, and read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, August 29th, 1957, the U.S. Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1957, marking the first federal civil rights legislation enacted since the Reconstruction era. This landmark act aimed to address racial discrimination and was a significant step in the ongoing struggle for civil rights in America. The law established the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, a bipartisan body tasked with investigating voter discrimination and other civil rights violations. Additionally, it created the Civil Rights Division within the U.S. Department of Justice, empowering federal prosecutors to seek injunctions against those who violated voting rights. Although the act faced significant opposition and was weakened by compromises, it paved the way for future and more comprehensive civil rights legislation. It also symbolized the federal government's renewed commitment to addressing racial inequality, setting the stage for the civil rights movements of the later 1960s. The Civil Rights Act of 1957 is often viewed as a foundational moment in the modern civil rights era, reflecting the nation's evolving attitudes towards race and justice. Lawyers who successfully challenged Elon Musk's $56 billion Tesla Pay package are seeking to record $6 billion in fees, but Delaware's top court has cautioned against awarding windfall fees. Chancellor Kathleen McCormick of Delaware's Court of Chancery, who is overseeing the case, must decide on the fee amount and whether a shareholder vote restored Musk's pay, which could reduce the fee. The lawyers argue that their fee request is justified by their significant victory and years of unpaid work. However, the court has signaled that extremely high fees should be carefully scrutinized to avoid excessive compensation. If the pay package is considered restored, Tesla's liability for a large fee might be reduced. The U.S. Supreme Court has decided to keep President Joe Biden's student loan relief plan on hold, maintaining the pause imposed by a federal appeals court. This decision prolongs uncertainty for around 8 million borrowers enrolled in the SAVE plan, which aimed to lower monthly payments and provide other benefits. The Department of Education expressed disappointment, highlighting the plan's potential to ease financial burdens. The Supreme Court's action follows its earlier rejection of a separate Biden debt relief plan, which it deemed unauthorized by Congress. Missouri and other Republican-led states argue that the SAVE plan is similarly flawed, as it would eliminate up to $475 billion in debt, making it even more expensive than the prior initiative. The Biden administration insists that the states lack legal standing and that Congress granted the Education Department the necessary authority to implement such plans. The 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is expected to deliver a ruling soon, but for now, new enrollments in the program are halted, and borrowers face the possibility of penalties once the current payment grace period ends next month. In a piece for Forbes, I wrote a bit about the unrealized gains tax, or wealth tax, that has engendered much consternation among people not worth $100 million. By way of background, the Biden administration's fiscal year 2025 budget proposes a 25% wealth tax on unrealized gains for individuals owning over $100 million in assets. Unrealized gains are the increase in an asset's value that hasn't been sold or converted into cash, meaning the gains exist only on paper. This proposal largely affects the ultra-wealthy, with the average taxpayer not impacted. To illustrate, consider someone who invests $250,000 in a stock. That's a lot of money. And let's say its value increases 40 times within a year. Even with this substantial investment and substantial gain, the investor wouldn't face the unrealized gains tax unless their shares appreciated another 10 times, reaching a value of $100 million. At that point, they would owe $24.9 million in taxes, requiring them to sell a small portion of their shares. Despite the hefty tax bill, they would still retain significant wealth. Critics worry that such a tax might lead to a stock market downturn if large shareholders sell off assets to cover their tax obligations. However, selling shares to fund other projects is quite common, and similar concerns about market instability aren't typically raised in those cases. In sum, you almost certainly needn't worry about an unrealized gains tax if you're listening to this, and should be more concerned about what kinds of services you could expect to receive from the revenue raised from such a tax. If I may briefly editorialize, think about the earlier story where student debt relief has been shelved or possibly even killed entirely. The only time the national discourse revolves around what a policy will cost, the cost will be borne by the ultra-wealthy and benefits would flow to low and middle-income households. Keep an eye on that. It may be important. And with that, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than Minimum Competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment and leave a rating or review on your podcast player, we'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in a story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever you get your finely crafted podcasts. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here tomorrow, and until then, remember, as we approach Labor Day, in the words of a one A. Lincoln, labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration.